Thanks for joining me, and we're running a little bit late. I apologize. I want to thank you all for anybody out there who's joined me for the first time. I want to thank Ace for, I just laid this on him a couple of nights ago. um, and he's come up. He's my hero. Except there are kinks that we need to work out. So I'm going to read from book 6 of my 10-book series, and we're in the process of editing book 8, and I'll be reading from that probably later on this month. And the excerpt I chose, I think it's chapter 4, and one of the things that it's like my characters, tell me what they want me to write about. And this character, Paz, showed up. And she and her family have a history in the Walkerville area. It's a farm community. And she's from a Japanese-American background. And there's some secrets in her family, and there's some secrets. It's like I think that the Japanese American internment during World War II is probably more known these days than it was before. I believe that they're teaching this piece of history in colleges and maybe even high schools these days. But anyway, so this is the way it affected the Miyoshi family in Walkerville. Jerry sat with her arms crossed on the table. She looked at Jeff sitting to her right and Paz at her left. She had never noticed the slant of their noses was identical, the tiny slope upward giving them an air of gaiety. She pulled a Bendigo's letter from her pocket. Laying the envelope on the table between them, she said, "I got this from Ab's lawyer. Certified mail." Anxiously, Paz reached for the envelope. Jeff closed his big hand over her smaller one. "Remember that a lot of people have suffered." Disregarding this remark, she pulled the letter from the envelope, quickly reading it. Before she finished, her face was blanched, her breathing came in shallow gasps, and she felt lightheaded. Crumbling the letter, she lowered her head to the table. Alarmed, Jerry immediately took control. She got a glass of water and put it in front of her daughter. She squeezed her shoulder, an unvoiced command to take a drink. Automatically, Paz complied, feeling better. She could breathe. Jeff picked up the crumpled letter. After smoothing it, he quickly scanned it. Gently, he refolded it back into the envelope. With a nod, he slid it towards Jerry, who repocketed it. After gulping the water, Paz fanned herself, willing the color to come back to her face, willing the questions to surface. Jerry touched Jeff's sleeve. Curiously, she asked, "How long have you known?" Jeff replied immediately, as if he'd been thinking about it. "Dad always wanted me to watch out for Paz when we were kids, and he never said that about anyone else. She was the only girl who hung out with me and Ronan and Carl. Sometimes Fiona would ride her bike with us, but not very often. After Mom died, I asked Dad why we came over here on the holidays." Paz groaned as her synapses began to coordinate. Holidays, birthdays, graduation, New York. Jeff continued, watching Paz's face as she connected the dots. "He said both of you were as important to him as I was, as much as Mom was. When I got older, I figured out what he meant." He gauged Jerry's reaction. She was calm. Jerry was always reserved. He never got a sense of her the way he did with most people. When he was younger, she never fawned over him the way most of the adults did because he was a Bendigo's son. She treated his dad much the same way. He also never doubted that Jerry cared for both him and his father. As if she felt him watching her, she turned to him, smiling, dark eyes shining with unshed tears. She reached out, cupping her hand with his. Jerry spoke quietly. Your family and mine have been connected for many generations, Jeff. Bendigo honored that connection and kept it alive, even as the older folks who were part of that original link died off. I'm talking multiple generations, back to World War II. The two younger people waited expectantly for her to continue. Paz looked calmer and as if a weight had been lifted from her. Jeff was curious. He knew more than Paz, but had never heard the full story. His father had told Jeff that it wasn't his story to tell. Continuing, Jerry's voice became stronger. My great-grandfather is one of the first Japanese in Walkerville to own farmland. He acquired almost 65 acres. Then the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. She stared at her broad, calloused hands. On February 19th of the next year, Executive Order 9066 declared that all people of Japanese ancestry would be rounded up and put in internment camps for the duration of the war. Sighing, she looked at Jeff. The Japanese lost their livelihoods, their lives, savings, their homes. Families are torn apart. A lot of people in Walkerville turned against my family and other Japanese. And a lot of people in Walkerville helped in any way they could. Your family, Jeff, was one of them. Your great-grandfather kept my family's valuables, land deeds, money, jewelry. The Montrose family farmed that land as their own. They did it for us, and they gave it back to my great-grandmother. They gave everything back to her. She left for camp with her husband, her 19-year-old son, and young daughter. She came back with her daughter. Her husband died in the camp, and her son died in Italy fighting for the Army's 4077th. Your family has been our guardian angels for a very long time. Without the help of both families, we wouldn't be here now on the Miyoshi farm. Neither Paz nor Jeff dared to breathe. They knew the story wasn't finished. Wiping her eyes with her hands, Jerry continued. Bendigo was older than me. He was already married and had you, Jeff. You were just a little boy. Your dad had been a part of my life as a good friend, and we made each other laugh. Jerry was with her memories. Her body was at the kitchen table, but her spirit was in the past. One day when I was 18, we just looked at each other and something happened. I saw him as a man, not as a Bendigo who was part of my family. And he saw me as Jerry. We fell in love. It was wrong. If your mother found out, it would have hurt a lot of people, including you. We were so guilty and we were so in love. Her face softened as that young woman she always kept hidden made her way to the surface. She looked livelier, more vibrant and beautiful. She was the woman Bendigo fell in love with all those years ago. She avoided Paz's gaze. I found out I was pregnant and I didn't tell anyone. I broke it off with Ab. I told him I didn't want to see him anymore, that it wasn't fair to anyone. I never told him about Paz. Of course he found out. He tried to contact me. He contacted my parents who were horrified. I'd shamed them. I was persona non grata. He told me that one day he would show his love. He told me the one way he could show his love was to start a savings account for Paz that was in my name, that I could do anything I wanted with it. He promised to add to it every year, which he did. Paz caught her breath. That's what you gave me for school. Jerry nodded. I thought that was the best use of that money. I never told anyone. Paz's eyebrows drew together like Jerry's when she was cautious. You told me you saved it up, that it was your wages from working the farm. Grimly, Jerry nodded again. I didn't know what else to tell you. You were always so angry for not knowing who your father was. Fuck, Mom. Why didn't I know about this before now? She cried angrily. She never told anyone. A new voice filtered through the kitchen. Their hands swiveled to see Gramps standing in the doorway, dressed in frayed flannel pajamas that had once been navy blue. His feet were bare. Although he looked old and cold, he stood erect, hands folded in front of him. He was present in spirit, in the timbre of his raspy voice, his strong body. All three of them remembered this Russell before the memory loss began. Jerry wouldn't tell anyone. He didn't care who was shamed. She didn't care for anyone or anything except to take care of you, Aiko. He was the only one besides her grandmother who called Paz by her Japanese name. Your mother has always loved you. It doesn't matter who your father is. With that, Russell Miyoshi turned and traipsed back upstairs. The heavy silence of the kitchen was punctuated by the tick-tock sound of the old wall clock, its electrical cord still plugged in behind the refrigerator. The fridge hummed loudly, old and tired, on its last legs. Jeff observed shrewdly breaking into Russell's stunning revelation. Well, that's that then. Russell hasn't been this alert in a while, has he? What do you think, Paz? Sitting with her hands tucked under her armpits as if to ward off a cold spell, Paz shrugged. I need to take this in. Somehow there's a part of me that's not surprised. I mean, it answers a lot of questions I never knew about Bendigo. I just wish I could have known him when he was alive. Jeff, how do you feel about me? He fondly ruffled her hair. Hey, I've always thought of you as my little sister. Besides, I've known for a long time. I'm used to it, and I'm glad it's out in the open. Jerry, what about you? Jerry leaned forward, lightly touching both children. I would have kept this a secret forever. I didn't want anyone hurt. I know, Paz. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you. I just couldn't. Please, forgive me. Shh. Jeff replied gently to both women. We'll work it out. We're family now, he declared. So, that's it.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming. And
see you tomorrow night.
I'll see you tomorrow night. You can hear my person prompting me in the back, can't you?
Oh, tell them that by tomorrow morning we'll have the link for tomorrow night.
Oh, okay. So I call Ace my factotum, which means that he's kind of my person who does everything. And he tells me to tell you that where's it going to be? Is it going to be on this link?
It'll be right down there underneath you.
It's going to be underneath all of this stuff that I've written. There's going to be a link for tomorrow night, which is Thursday night's link, and hopefully it'll go a lot smoother than it did tonight. Thanks a lot, everybody. Good night.